Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 23rd, 2022 at approximately 9:14 a.m. PST. Things are shifting, but as I said yesterday, at least I think I said yesterday, today I want to talk about the idea of when is the best time to expand, whether we're talking your home belongings, or we're talking your business side. Okay, now I've talked a number of times about the concept of what you require to break even, to cover your standard bills. Because what we're looking at here is how to take your money from where it is to where you'd like it to be when you don't have $20,000 to start with. Okay. Now, there are two philosophies where it comes to finance that I've seen. One, if your expenses are too high, cut back, give up this, give up that. That's the one philosophy. The other philosophy, which is the one I caught to, is find a higher income, a legal way to make a better income. That said, okay, when we look at your income, work out what it costs to run your house or business. Doesn't matter which. Okay, this has to include at least your mortgage or your rent, utilities, your food, your entertainment, your insurance, your insurances, transportation. All of these things fit together. Now, there's more to business accounting than there is to personal accounting for most people. Okay. In essence, it's the same thing. Now, in my case, I work from a base of $2,500. Okay, $2,500 a month will run my house. Once you've done that, now you've got something to work with as far as the house goes. Okay, so we look at that and you go, okay, if I want extra things, I've got to cover that first amount of money to start with. Now, last month, let's see if I've actually got the information here so I can actually give you at least functional ballpark. Okay, functional ballpark, we go to there, and to, hey, don't do that. Okay, last month, I cleared $3,400, meaning, since I need 25, I've got almost $1,000 to work with. Okay, at that count. Now, that $1,000, because everything's already paid for, don't take a loan out. You never borrow money if you can avoid it. And most of the time you can avoid it. It does take a little longer to get things. But that $1,000, okay, that covers the concept of how much money you've got to work with. That's when you start buying your new things. If you've got that extra $1,000, and you're only working with whatever is above your required income. Okay, if it's only $100, that's all you've got. That's where you put your savings away for bigger purchases. Put money aside. That's the money you can use. Okay. Now, of course, remember, if you've got a budget because the way your life works, you really have to go out for dinner at least once a week. Include that in the monthly expenses that are required. Okay. Once you've got that monthly covered, then you start looking at what you can work with. Okay, so in my case, with clearing the $3,400, that gave me last month about $1,000 I can do with what I please. Okay. Now, I've worked it out, and I should have done this before, so I'm just going to go and grab it. I'll be right back. In this case, I'm not actually shutting the phone. Okay. Now, like I said a long time ago, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. Okay. I'm sure some of you my age will recognize this thing. It's a desktop calendar. But on it, in order to make sure my accounts are climbing, I keep on it a list of what I had at the end of the month to make in my individual bank accounts, so that I can say, okay, that's what I have to have this month by the end. This is all taken into consideration. So once you've got that basic covered, now you've got money to work with. Now you know what you can spend on luxuries. Okay, that new computer you'd like, that new car, that one you're probably going to have to work towards. If not, more power to you. But, like on mine, I keep an eye on what my balance is at the end of the month, what I desire in my bank account by the end of the month for each of my accounts. And as a matter of fact, I forgot to put one down there, so I will have to take a look at that. And I can do that on this same file. Okay, now I know what I got to do there, so I should have that listed, so that's what I'm going to do. This is a live recording, meaning any hiccups that I do, you're going to get. I go back at the end of the day, at the end of this recording, and I'll double check to make sure that I've got the date right, and then I just post it as is. Now, once you know how much money you require, okay, to run your household, anything over that is your play money. That's the money that you can use. But don't forget, you want to build up your savings account in order to deal with your retirement. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Okay, it doesn't matter at all. So from that standpoint, okay, you have to look at it and go, okay, which way am I going with this? Okay, how am I going to make this work? Once you've got that figured out, okay, now you can start building your bank account. Now, of course, in my case, I've got 3 bank accounts I work with. Each one, I've got a minimum amount that I desire to have in my bank after all expenses are paid, sitting in my bank. Okay, in this way, I encourage my bank accounts to grow. Okay, now with that in mind, take a real serious look at it. Now I'm going to shift gears here for half a second, and we're going to look at business. For those of you that are running a standard business, okay, you've only got one outlet. What we just talked about applies directly to you. If you're looking at either opening a new location or you're looking at opening up and going into franchising, okay, the way to tell when to open that new location is you know what it costs you to run your business. Take a look at the new location you're looking at and figure out what it's going to cost you to run that entire system. And that includes your rent, your insurance, your wages, any salaries you're paying, your inventory. All of this has to be included. And if you're in business, you know there's a lot more that's got to be taken into there. And don't forget your utilities. By the way, even in a business, you do desire to have an entertainment account, because you never know when it might be an idea to take a client out for, a client, or for that matter, a really good customer out for dinner. Okay, so you do desire that entertainment fee as well. And with businesses, we have to remember there's an advertising fee. Okay, all of these things get caught in. Figure it out for the new location as well. You've already got it done for the primary location. Your new location, look at what it's going to cost you to run it. Now, here's how to tell when it's safe to expand. When it is safe to expand is when your net income is high enough to cover the expenses of your net profit, when your net profit is high enough that net profit will cover the entirety of the expenses of the new building. Once that is done, you're perfectly safe to expand. Okay, now this is a guideline. You get to do what you will. Okay, but what happens if you've got the net income, the net profit already high enough to cover your expenses? You open that new outlet with no functional overhead. It's already covered. So everything you're adding on to, everything you bring in through that new outlet is going to add to your net profit. Okay. And now you can start building and watching what it does. It's a lot of work, but it's something that can be done. And this is how you do it when you don't have the money. If you've got $50,000, I'll tell you right now, use the same method. Okay, otherwise that 50,000 won't do you a whole lot of good. Very critical that you take a look at that. Okay. Now the nice part is once you get that first little bit open. Okay, once you get that first new outlet open. When you go look at the second one, take a look at your overall from both companies combined, from both outlets combined. Take a look at what you've got for a net profit from both combined. Okay, once that combined net profit is high enough to handle the overall expenses of the third location, okay, now you're good to go. Okay, and the reason for that is it sets things up. Now, I strongly recommend, even when you start getting into 3, 4, 5 outlets, always only take 2 of them. Okay. Otherwise, what you'll find is you may expand too fast. If you only take 2, and the other net profit that you've got gets put into your bank account, then all of a sudden you're sitting in pretty good shape. Okay. So, I mean, this is how you look at when do I have spare money to play with? Not, well, if I postpone paying my cable bill, I can go out for dinner tonight or I can go out for drinks. Technically, you can do it that way, but how's that working for you? So, we're looking at how to expand or how to figure out when to expand. And the reality of that is, even on a minimal income, you can make a decent growth curve. Lord knows I've been doing reasonably well at it, but it's because of paying very close attention to what I'm doing. And remember, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, okay? Frankly, these are the tools that are working for me. This is why I know they'll work for you. It just boils down to staying on top of them, to making sure that you're paying attention to what you desire. Because I'm not the one that says what's successful for you. You are. But regardless of what your income is, you're in exactly the same boat as everybody else. I can tell you from the number of people I've talked to that are very well off, that quite frankly, the fact that they may have a brand new house, they may have a brand new car, the massive majority of them are paying lease payments on those, or they're paying a high mortgage, which ultimately means they're renting them. Remember what I said about renting? Not a good idea. I mean, renting for a house, you gotta weigh it out. But if you're buying something you don't require, okay, and one of those funny little things about requiring a car, no matter how much you spend on that vehicle, and I've probably got the dimensions off a little here. If you're a mechanic, you'll know better than I will. At least I sure hope so. When you're looking at buying a car, remember, regardless of what the car is, regardless of the bells and whistles, ultimately what is absolutely imperative is that it runs well and that the tires are in good shape, because all cars rely on the same roughly 16 square inches of ground for traction. Without that ground, you're hooped. Okay. So, I mean, rest assured, a $250,000 car will still suffer some pretty severe damage if you run into a telephone pole. So when we're looking at figuring out how quickly you can expand, okay, or how things can shift in that end, take a look at what your required expenses are. Whatever's over that, that's what you're working with in the way of added pleasures, or added products. In my case, I am looking at buying another computer. Okay, but that will come because that new computer is going to be for nothing but playing Dungeons and Dragons and the like on. Now, I'm still tabletop, but I find I end up with 80,000 pages of paper, and I keep losing them. So, I'm going to be buying a new computer, a new laptop or notepad that I can work with. Okay, but that's going to come out of surplus income, which means it'll probably be another couple of months before I do it. But this is why I say these are tools that I personally work with. Now, if you've got a lot of overhead, okay, one of the things that I found very important, and this was just one of those neat little tricks on how to work with your money. If you've got a credit card that is not overdrawn, okay, if you've got a credit card that is not overdrawn, when you're talking about paying utilities, you take your paycheck in, and however much money you were going to pay on your utilities, put that whole amount plus the minimum payment for the credit card all on the credit card at once. Yes, before you pay the utilities, put it on the credit card, and we'll talk about that at another time. Okay, exactly how to figure out which credit card is best. But pick a credit card that is not over limit. Okay, you take that full amount for what you require for utilities, for what you require for the minimum payment on your credit card. Pay the whole thing, pay all of that onto the credit card. Now you turn around and you pay your utilities with your credit card. The reason for that is depending on the credit card you're using, paying your utility bills will add extra points, extra cash back. Plus, it pays the utilities and the credit card without losing any money. Okay, you've still got access to it because, of course, once you've made that payment, you've got the credit card still coming in. These are just a couple of things that are extremely important where it comes to handling that sort of thing. And do I have one of these neat little things here? Probably not. Yeah, that's it. Drop my coffee on the floor. Because that always works well for me. Yeah, it figures I don't have what I wanted to have. Told you I get too many things going on at the same time. By the way, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of information that is coming out. And the primary thing that I'm looking at here is a very simple message I came back to this life to pass on to everyone in existence. Working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, where do finances come in? Well, frankly, you can go to a financial advisor because I'm certainly not one. I haven't studied in school to find out how to do this. I've learned the hard way. But the tools I'm using are working. If I look at it, where are my eyeballs? Right there. If I look at this list, okay, and I go to the tally there, 1, 2, 3, 4, my last 5 months, I've broken the barrier using the methods I'm talking about right now. I've earned what I was aiming for. In every case, for the last 5 months. Okay, and I've kept the balances growing. These tools are ones that I personally generate. Now, last year, just to put that in perspective, and this is more information than you really require, but it does put it in perspective. I am living, my income last year was about $33,000-ish for the whole year. Now, when you think about it, I'm paying $1,000 rent, raising a son, okay, and keeping all of my other stuff on the go. Now, with this in mind, okay, it really boils down to a simple issue. Okay, and that is that it turns around. I'm doing this, and these financial tools are working for me. Same as my philosophies in life. Okay, the only laws I bother following are the 3 karmic laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay, now by following those philosophies and by using the tools that I've been talking about, these are the keys to why my life is turning. And they are also the gateway to why your life can turn. But you're going to have to be the one making the effort and doing the work. When you're looking at your home, yes, it's always nice to go out to a movie, but take a look at the bottom line. If you're having to sacrifice something to be of critical import, such as not pay a utility bill, not put the proper amount and the proper balance of groceries in your house, then you might want to postpone the movie. Okay, but these tools will work very nicely to set you up so you can go to the movie when you desire. So when you desire to go out for dinner, it's not going to cause a lot of stress because you're pulling out of the excess net profit. Okay, where it comes to businesses, if you expand too fast, then you run into the same problem that so many have run into, and they've gone, oh, I've got to cut back, I've got to sell part of my business because I can't afford it. That's not because people fail and have planned to fail. That's because on the whole, people fail to plan. These tools are ways of making certain in the long game that you're making headway. Now, I know exactly how much money I had at the end of last month. I know how much money I've got, how much money I require at the end of this month, and I can keep a running balance. And that's where this little calendar comes in. Because contrary to people with computers, I find this works so much easier. Okay, but then for me, I'm a dinosaur. And many of you may well be. But by having the information right there, I know, by simply glancing at it, what money I've got to work with. You can have exactly the same thing, but it's going to take planning. This is not something that just happens because you got to remember, money doesn't care how you feel. Money doesn't care what you're up to. It will do the exact same thing it always does. Okay, it's very much like guns in all fairness. They don't care how you feel. A gun will sit there blankly on the floor and do absolutely nothing unless you pick it up. Okay, now where it comes to your checkbook, there was an old thing when I was growing up that went, I can't be out of money. I still have checks left. Well, I'll tell you, that was a really bad philosophy. Worked like a charm. I had a lot of stuff that was totally useless and is now gone, but I managed to get what I was aiming for. And now where we are is at a point where by my handing you these tools, I'm not saying you have to use them. I'm saying if you don't have a better option, they're tools that are working for me right now, which means they are tools that and they work for other people I've given them to, multiple other people. The fact that they work for others does stand to reason that since money doesn't care how you feel, and it all works the same way, regardless of what denomination or what nationality you are, money works the same way. And frankly, these tools apply. So when you start working with what is your excess net profit, then you know what you're dealing with. Okay, or your excess income. Because you take your basic your income, whatever's coming in, through whatever method combined. Work out what you require to run your house. Once that household income is in, then you start looking at taking care of other things. Okay, then you look at your entertainment. Now, don't forget, in that budget, in that layout that we had to start with, when figuring out your overhead, have an entertainment budget. That this is all I require for me to at least feel like I'm getting something. Now, the other thing I do strongly recommend, regardless of what your money is, okay, when a paycheck comes in, the first thing you do before you pay any of your bills, okay, take 1% of whatever you make. Only 1%, regardless of your income. Okay, that first 1% of your paycheck goes into your pocket for mad money. Why do you do that? Well, that's because it changes the feel of the income from I'm working to pay my bills to I'm working and paying my bills. The absolute most important bill to pay at all to anybody, in my opinion, is yourself. But remember, you've got obligations. You want to keep a roof over your head? It would be advisable to pay your rent or your mortgage. If you desire to have cable, well, cable is actually one of the last things you pay for. I've had people tell me literally, I've got to pay my bill, my cable, and I've got to pay my power. But I can only afford one, so I've got to get my cable paid because I cannot be without my cable. And I look at them and go, you do realize that if your power is cut off, your cable is useless. Most people have a tendency of overlooking this little fact. Okay, so take a look at your excess net income. Your excess income over what you require to run your house. That's your play money. Where it comes to your business, you take a look at your net profit. After all expenses are paid, that's where you get your net profit. And that's what you look at to make it so you can make sure you're on the right track and actually growing. All in all, it's a very big challenge a lot of the time. But this is why I say it takes absolute focus on your part to make things happen. Okay, now with that in mind, I'm going to bring this to a close. I'll figure out what I'm doing tomorrow. But I'm going to bring this to a close, and I will catch up with you tomorrow sometime. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.